You learn from experience. Because we are metacognitive, we are able to ask the deeper questions. A non-metacognitive animal just glides through life, always in the moment, always reacting to the environment, but not asking the big questions like, what is going on? Which is the ultimate, the deepest question is, what is going on?
Okay, but one thing is asking a question, another thing is answering a question. You're sort of appealing to you little people out there. You should just ask questions and wait for some of your masters to give you the answers, right? If we're only able to ask questions, implicitly we're not able to answer the questions, right? Or then you should say, well, everybody can philosophize and you can come up with your own answers, right? He's not saying that. He doesn't want you to think for yourself. You should adapt his message, right?
Going on, which sounds so banal, but it's so incredibly deep, so profound. Or what is the self? What am I?
Bullshit bingo, right? Deep and profound, right? Bullshit bingo. I refer to another video in this series I've done here, right? This deconstruction.
What are you doing here? What is this for? What is the meaning of this dance? What a strange condition life is.
Oh, this dance? So now it's a dance, right? A pure objectivity, I don't know. No, a pure subjectivity infected with some objectivity, right? That objectivity is sort of pure pain, right? But it's a dance, yes.
To maintain an organism outside of thermodynamic equilibrium for a few decades, it's incredibly weird. What is this? What's going on? Is there...
Why is it weird? What does it mean that it's weird? Just because you don't understand it doesn't necessarily make it weird. What I find weird is your philosophy, right? And the weirdness is that you don't seem to be connecting anything. You're just sort of pretending to connect those dots. I keep talking about it, connecting the dots the way he wants, right? But he's actually just giving you dots without connection. That's actually more precise to put it that way. Well, if I call it a dashboard, therefore there must be something outside because you know the meaning of dashboard is that it's a representation, right? So therefore there's an outside because I used that word. And all of a sudden this meaning pops out into my philosophy. Right? The words I use is dictating my philosophy, right? That's another way of saying sophist, right?
A reason? Is there a telos, a goal to all of this? And what's the relationship between me and the rest of nature? These are the big questions, and we ask.
Nature? Now we're calling it nature, right? Could you please, these 7 or 8 different terms you are potentially using for the same, right? And I'm so confused about these terms that I don't know if they're meaning the same, right? And don't come and blame me for not having a sufficient sophist mind in order to have a correct understanding what you mean by these various terms, right? So you're a nature and refer to the rest of nature, which is what? Aren't you talking about some pure subjectivity between these dissociations? Is that also nature or what? It seems like you have various different stories, and depending on what you want to talk about, you jump into this story and then jump into that story and then the other story or whatever, right? And in each story you use different terms. I don't know. I'm just trying to make sense of it, and maybe I shouldn't try because, as I say, it's probably craziness. Is that right?
Ask the big questions as metacognitive individuals, and this metacognition, we have every reason to believe, exists only in life. Only through life does the universe metacognize, because metacognition is something that arose.
Oh, so the universe now it's not nature, now it's universe. is metacognizing. So there's some awareness that pops up somewhere, right? Within a dissociation, apparently. But that's still a part of the universe. You're not something special. You're just one little, insignificant event in some huge thing, other thing outside you that you have no control of. You have to go and ask Bernardo Kastrup, right? So it's also this, you're basically a fucking useless little eater, right? And this is fucking dangerously close to some of these totalitarian bastards in the 20th century in particular, right? Who considered all these people just, kill them. Fuck them. They're just insignificant little specks in a big picture I have of the world and the world order and so on, right? If you want to make people feel insignificant, go and listen to, if you want to feel insignificant and rest in that and sit and wait until you die, right? Then go listen to Bernardo Kastrup, right? I mean, this is, it's like he's sitting there, it's almost like I'm a shrink and I'm sitting there listening to his, weirdo psychology, right? And I would say, okay, this is almost too much for me, right? I can't handle this much craziness in one person, right? I'm not a fucking Sigmund Freud, right? And that Carl Jung, he was an idiot, right? Okay.
From the evolution of life in a planetary ecosystem. It's a higher level mental function that was engineered by the evolution of life. Without it, no metacognition. Without life, no metacognition. So this puts us in a unique position in the dance of existence. Only through our eyes can the mind
dance of existence. Oh yes, I'm poetic now. I'm poetic. You like that, right? It feels good to be poetic because it creates some kind of emotion of me. It sort of imbue the world with meaning by using, poetic terms, right? Sophistry, man.
Nature take account of itself in an explicit manner and ask the larger, the bigger questions and get the answers when we are no longer dissociated.
There it was, right? There it was. He's basically telling you now, don't sit and listen to my stupid shit because I'm dissociated, right? I can't get to the truth. I only get to the truth, so-called, quote, in a normal, everyday sense of truth, right? When I become associated with my mind. That's what I'm hearing, right? So you can't get to it because you're dissociated from that reality. So you're able to ask the question, but too bad, you have been dissociated, right? So if he's dissociated, why the hell would I listen to him, right? Because he's full of shit. Or he's basically telling me he must be full of shit because he's dissociated. He has no connection with that big thing, right? Other than his idea of that there is a big thing, right?
Sound cruel to say what I'm about to say, so I have to be very careful.
Yes. I have low testosterone, so I'm afraid people might come and kill me. So I'm getting anxious, right? Yes.
Of the world's cultures and civilizations almost always has a seed of truth, even when it's distorted into morally despicable.
Oh, okay. So Adolf Hitler had some truth about the Jews. Is that what you're saying? Mate? Right? I mean, how deep do you want to go into that statement, right?
I'll mention one morally despicable act, animal sacrifice, or even human sacrifice, both of which have been practiced by cultures the world over through most of history. Do I think that's okay? No, I don't think that's okay. We are all going to die eventually anyway. There is absolutely no need to speed up the process. And to speed up the process is actually to spit on the face of nature. It's nature that should decide when it's time, not us, not the ego, to take the reins from nature.
And cut out. Oh, man. Oh. I'm so deep into mysticism shit here, right? That I'm really kind of uncomfortable with it, right? I mean, this is pure craziness. And, you know, that's why I've always had trouble with these supernatural, you know, religions and all that shit, right? Because people are so fucking crazy, man. They say some crazy shit, right? And they have nothing to back it up with other than this sort of dude who tries to connect the dots in this ridiculous manner, right? Where he actually not connecting anything. It just sounds like it, right? And it's basically, well, mommy told me. So I have to connect the dots this way, otherwise mommy might not like me anymore. Fuck off, man.
A life short. Having said that, there is a seed of truth to the intuition. Death is the end of the dissociation.
Oh, it's just bullshit, right? Somebody came up with some bullshit story in order to control the people around him, right? Because if you have some kind of built-in anxiety about, I mean, think of it this way, right? As I said in the last part, most people, if not all people, individuals, have some kind of dependency on some other individuals, right? Human beings, let's say, whatever you want to call it, right? But at the same time, human beings are the most dangerous aspect of your life. Other, maybe even yourself, right? If you're a crazy philosopher. But at the same time, human beings is the most dangerous aspect of your life, right? So that creates anxiety or tension in you, right? So how do we approach that? Well, one way is to kind of, I want to control people so they fit into a mold that is predictable for me. So I can better predict what is going to happen in the future, right? If everybody's sitting in a concentration camp, well, it's kind of predictable what is going to happen, right? So they're in control of this, right? This anxiety is what create the passion or need or whatever it is for this control thing. We have to have an order. There have to be rules. There have to be laws, right? Somebody give me a law so I know what is going to happen, because otherwise my anxiety, right? I lost a bit of my train of thought. Let me see if I can get back into this.
So when you die, whatever insights you've accumulated about the bigger questions are released into a broader cognitive context, into the very fabric of nature. So there is a sense.
The very fabric of nature. You talk both about nature as if it's some kind of existence, or I don't know what other term to put in. And now there's also a fabric of it. Would you mind pointing out what that fabric is? Because it sounds like something like superstrings to me, right? It just comes up with fabric out of nowhere, right? I don't like a philosophy where terms just pop out of nowhere and as being used in order to explain something else that just popped out of nowhere, right?
In which sacrifice is an offering to the divinity, which is no endorsement of sacrifice. But I'm just trying to highlight that.
Oh, it isn't. Oh, it is. No, it's no endorsement. No. No, don't sacrifice yourself, right? You are a sacrificial lamb, right? When it sucks all your memories out of you, right? I mean, I don't know how to put this in words, man. I mean, I'm trying my best here, right? And I mean, I am on a riding a golf cart through Crazyville, right? And I'm trying to find somewhere to park my golf cart, and I'm like, what the hell is this, man? I want to get out as fast as I can, but I need some gasoline, right?
Come out of nothing. They are not gratuitous. They are not arbitrary. Usually there is a foundation, a core of truth in that intuition. Another example of the same intuition is how we depict the figure of the reaper of death, which is usually a
so now we're going into symbolism, right? Man, I mean, it's like, yes, there's somebody, but there are millions of symbols in the world that, symbolizes this, that, and the other, right? But I'm going to take this one, which is about what? Death, right? It's about death. And, the big mind will harvest you, suck all your memories and your colors and everything out of you, and you will become one with subjectivity. Oh, man.
A creature with a hood carrying, guess what? A harvesting instrument.
Oh, yes.
A harvesting instrument.
No, I think that the harvesting instrument, it was mostly it was peasants back in the day, right? 95% of the world was peasant, if not more, right? And one of the biggest weapons they had there was the scythe, right? And it looks kind of, dangerous, right? And you could also, I understand the analogy that the death comes to harvest life, because it's sort of a, zombie of some kind, right? I don't know. But it's not a kitchen knife or, a slingshot he's coming with, right? That might as well be, It's the most dangerous, biggest tool or weapon you could think of in the peasant world, right? That's why it functions, in my opinion.
You plant the seed of life and you harvest it. And what is harvest?
So you have just been planted by the big mind, right? And then he watches this grow and be confused and suffer. And then he says, yeah, I guess it's time to harvest it now. Right? I mean, oh man. What kind of crazy, psychotic, weirdo world is he living in, man? How does he get out of bed in the morning, right? And why does he? Oh, no, I have to stay alive as long as I can because I want to prolong the suffering. Because I don't think it's allowed to commit suicide. Don't hurry, right? Why not? Why not end it? Because it's not going anywhere anyway, right? Like, what's the name of that philosopher who said the biggest question is, should you or shouldn't you commit suicide? Wasn't that the French guy, right? I forget the name, right? But it makes no sense at all, this, right? It makes absolutely no sense at all to me, right? You could say that it makes some kind of weird, crazy sense in some kind of cloud castle fashion. There is some appeals to structure, you could say, right? But it's so far removed from this, and I see that, the next part 7 is called Implication of Analytic Idealism on Everyday Life, right? And that's what I've been calling for. And I'm really interested in knowing how he will connect the dots backwards into that reality that he actually based the whole of this weird philosophy on, right? So he's basically, as I pointed out, saying, I am taking my everyday and making an abstraction from that. Then I'll go crazy in that abstraction. And after I've done the abstraction, I will say, what does that abstraction have to say about that reality I drew the abstraction from? Right? You see, it smokes and reeks of, begging the question here, right? Okay, but that's another side story. We'll take that in the next part of his, right?
Harvest is when you bank the gains and you use it for the benefit of the tribe. There are cores of truth.
But the tribe, oh, so it's all collectivism now, right? Oh yeah, Stalin is taking your life and your shit and your stuff because somebody else needs it, right? Yes, these Ukrainians in 1931, they need to die because they have the grain, so we need to take it, and it's it's a bigger story. You have to crack some eggs in order to make this omelette, and you are sad we have to take your eggs, so fuck off and die 10 million people in Holodomor, right? Sounds like a really, really good appeal to me, right? No, it stays in the abstractions, so I have to make the connections, right? And then you come to say to me, why are you making those weirdo connections to reality, right? Or history and so on. I'm talking about the big mind, right?
To all this. These things don't pop out arbitrarily for no reason in the world's cultures. And they do hint at the meaning of life. They do hint at why we are here. And the moral responsibility we carry as far as we know, the only truly...
You can't sit there and tell me that because you have come up with this fucking crazy story, that all of a sudden some ethics pops out of it, just like that. That all of a sudden you can talk about ethics. I don't fucking buy that, and I would encourage you to shut the fuck up about ethics before you have done some serious epistemology and ethics, right? Now this will, when people are this kind of crazy about ethics, I'm fucking crazy. I'm getting angry, right? I'm getting pissed because it is. I don't even have words to describe it. What's the word you would use? When somebody thinks they're so smart, but it's completely crazyville, and they are coming to all sorts of conclusions about how everything should function, and commandments of this and commandments of that, without any foundation of anything, right? Without any arguments of philosophy, just out of the blue, right? What do you call that? My vocabulary isn't strong enough for that, right? Please help me, right? It's not a dictator. It's this Grima worm tongue kind of slithering, court jester eel, man, who whispers in the ears of the powerful. You should do this and you should do that, right? It's this kind of. I have some crazy ideas. Do you like it? Yes. You can get this and you can get that.
At the cognizant eyes of nature, it is a tremendous responsibility to carry, particularly given the uniqueness of our position.
So now I have a responsibility of something that I don't understand what is, right? Is it the big mind creating little, what would you call it, man? A sort of offspring that is going to create some meta-consciousness that the big mind itself doesn't have. So the meta-consciousness, you have to be alive for 80 years and it's pure pain, right? And you can just sit there and be meta-conscious of all this pain, and then the big mind is coming to suck all that meta-consciousness out of you, right? I mean, it's almost, this is Funnyville, right? It is like, I mean, if he wasn't so fucking serious, I would be having a great laugh, because it's so crazy that it's sort of, even Monty Python couldn't come up with this, because it's not sufficiently funny to be Monty Python, but it's so crazy also that people would say, no, that's too crazy for Monty Python. This, right? Oh man, the fucking stories he's creating, man. I mean, I'm actually, and it's like I have heard in other places where he have said things like this, but it's only now when I sit here and deconstruct it that it really dawns on me how crazy it actually is what he's saying. You know, it's still this thing that he has removed himself from your everyday experience. So you can't go and say, no, it's not the case, right? That's the whole trick. That's how religion survives, because it always talks about something that you can go and check yourself, right? And that's why I don't buy anything, any kind of philosophy that basically ends up telling me, well, you can't go there, right? If I can't go there, there's no philosophy. And if I can go there, I am working from my qualia, my colors, my sounds, my taste, and so on. That's what I'm using, right? So anything that is in any way removed from your everyday experience, yes, he mentions it, but it's just an insignificant, weird, thing happening in this dissociated little bubble that is unimportant, other than the big mind is going to suck all of it out of you and leave you for dead afterwards, right? So you can do nothing about it. It's not for you. It's for the big mind. It has this little dissociated spies about, so it can sort of look at itself through you a little. It creates you create some meta-consciousness and some colors that the big mind comes and sucks out of you because it needs to understand itself or something like that, right? So, and actually, I'm reminded, he has said that dissociation is a spy for the big mind. So it's like, oh man, right? I mean, it's like, okay, it's actually pretty good in some sense, as I pointed out in the last part, that there are people like this crazy dude, right? Because he's going to suck all the crazies towards him. And then I know where they are. If they say, yeah, I've been listening to Bernardo Kastrup for more than a year or something, right? And I like it very much, then I say, okay, fine. Bye-bye, baby, right? Oh. So it's like, yeah, you can label yourself crazy by saying, yeah, I'm following Bernardo Kastrup. So I know where I got you. You don't have to elaborate further. I can classify you as a crazy person, right? So that's the benefit from my point of view. This is dysfunctional. It's even, I would say, a mistreatment, a misnomer, I think it's called, right? To call this philosophy. This is not philosophy. This is mysticism, right? As soon as you jump into your cloud castles and juggle around terms and words and prose, poetry and whatever you can come up with, right? And dreams, and it's all, mysticism bullshit from my point of view, right? And the whole point is to get into mysticism, right? It's sort of a I want to give up safe space where you can go and create your own little fantasy world, you could say, right? Where you can come up with all sort of things that cushion your lack of character to go and face the real reality of life, right?
Anything like us on this planet, and not anything even remotely akin to life in other planets yet. There may be more life in the universe, there probably is, but it's definitely not abundant. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the Fermi paradox staring us in the face. And this is sobering.
There's no time to read these. They pop up on the screen because the little people don't know about these things, and they don't have Google or anything like that, right? They don't have a philosophy dictionary at home, so we have to quickly put it up so it also we can show that we know what we're talking about, right? Okay. A high probability for more life in the universe, but without a single piece of evidence. There's a high probability without evidence. It's also one of these, I don't care, right? If there's life somewhere else, well, first of all, you need to define what you mean by life, right? Why are these dissociations only happening on the surface of Earth, apparently, right? Why is Earth so special? Why all these millions of dissociation, billions of dissociation happening here? But why is the big mind so focused on this fucking rock? The third rock from the sun, right? What is it? It's like the old... God created all living beings, and he must have been particularly interested in insects, because there are 300,000 different kinds of insects, right? So why the hell is the surface of Earth so interesting? I don't get it. I don't understand, right? I mean, I have no... He's just creating stories that fits with his bill, right? He wants to have this safe space where he can go and feel that there is at least some meaning to life that I come up with myself. And if I can convince somebody else, it feels even better if there's somebody who's sort of cushioning my philosophy, right?
A paradox staring us in the face. And this is sobering, morally and otherwise.
Morally? How does morality all of a sudden come into this? I don't get it. You don't fucking throw the term morality or ethics or anything like in my face without clarifying what the hell you're talking about, right? And this annoying, I hesitate to call it music, right? I guess there's some structure to the sounds. But it is this sort of, I'm throwing annoying qualia at you because qualia are not important, right? Ugh! Right? Of all the possible music you could, throw in the people's faces, this is what you came up with, right?
I do personally fear death, yes. When I was a young adult working at CERN in Switzerland, I didn't. Not.
Or European organization. Oh, it's an organization. So I'm in Europe. Apparently, I'm being told, right? I'm a part of Europe, right? I'm part of the EU. I was actually, participating in the first votings, so-called, for EU and whatever it's called, EEC, or I don't know. I don't give a shit, right? So I'm in Europe, so I must be a part of that organization. So I must have some say in it, apparently, right? No. It's European, but you can go there. It's only the higher classes of academia and the powerful people who can go there and do whatever they do there, squander gazillions of poor taxpayers' money by throwing around particles. Man, right? It's disgusting. I mean, how can millions of people be in such a huge Stockholm syndrome where they are being led around by these crazy people called politicians and thinking that everything they say must be virtuous and correct and right. If they say go there, they do it. And if you don't go there, you should be shot. Of course you should be shot. If you don't go over there and do as the virtuous politician says, and if you have to work night shift and, have your children handed over to the government in order to pay for a fucking large hadron collider, right? Then that's, of course, what you should do, right? Your little pathetic, dissociated life doesn't matter, right? The big mind want a hadron collider. And therefore you have to pay, you sorry ass, little, insignificant, stupid monkey dissociation, right?
Not only because it was very remote for me back then, but because I always had this adage in my mind, where I am, death is not, where death is, I am not. So there's nothing to fear, literally. But as my understanding of the world and reality evolved, And I'm today as convinced as a human being can reasonably be that my core subjectivity will survive and witness death. I am afraid of death.
But it's not your core subjectivity because it penetrates everything, this core subjectivity. You're not particular. Your core subjectivity is not particular. That's just the baseline of everything, according to yourself. So you have you are responsible for some kind of part of this core subjectivity. Well, then that core subjectivity is a part of your dissociation. So all you have access to is your core subjectivity. So how do you know there's some core subjectivity outside you, right? Just because there's something inside doesn't necessarily follow that there's something outside of the same kind. You know, it doesn't take a lot of effort to prick holes in this so-called philosophy, right? It is lame. It is wishful thinking. And this is where I want to go, so I'm coming up with all sorts of shit that makes me able to go there in some sophist manner, right? As I keep repeating now, right? I can hear myself repeating myself. But again, I'm lacking vocabulary to describe this in a more, in different ways than I've already done, right? So I keep saying the same thing, I guess.
The best models of death we have today are high-dose psychedelics.
The best model of death. I mean, do you want any more evidence that this is a death cult thing, right? He's talking about models of death. He's sort of, yes, my core subject, all this pain, it disappears, and I will become just core subjectivity, and then I'll be happy. Right, big mind daddy? Big mind daddy, take care of me. I have daddy issues. And mom is crazy.
Psychedelic trips, and they are the best because when done in the correct settings with correct supervision, they are absolutely safe, and they emulate death so well, experientially and physiologically. Psychedelics only reduce brain activity. They don't.
So they emulate death. So you can tell without having died how some experiment, some shit you can throw in your face, how that emulates death, right? I mean, I don't even want to go there, right? I don't want even to think about these things after all this shit here, right? I don't care about this, right? And he's alluded on the only thing that I feel that is interesting to follow still is how does he get back to this everyday life, right? And these hints he has given about ethics and morality, that is completely pulled out of his ass. And when he talks about it, there's no connection to anything. He hasn't created or presented any kind of ethics that I have seen anywhere, right? It is just like, well, I mentioned the word ethics and I talk about morality, but it's not philosophical. It's just using the terms. That's not, just talking, using the word car or bicycle doesn't create cars and bicycles, right?
Increase brain activity anywhere. A high-dose psychedelic trip, in that sense, is pretty much like a significant reduction in brain metabolism. In other words, it's the process of dying. And from an experiential perspective, anybody who has had a high-dose psychedelic trip entailing ego dissolution knows that it can be.
I'm just thinking, if he's getting rid of pain when he dies, right? And he's going to meet this core subjectivity, whatever it is, right? However that goes on, why does he fear it? Is he afraid that this big daddy is going to be angry with him or something because he didn't, metacognize the right things that the big mind daddy wanted to harvest from him, or what? What is he afraid of, right? I mean, oh, man. I mean, it's No, please, man, right? Be very careful when you listen to other philosophers, right? That's why I'm saying you have to start. The only thing I would say you have to do is make your own philosophy, right? Don't just eat something else's because they're probably crazy. And I'm possibly shooting myself in my foot here, right? And I'm not saying that, but they are probably crazy. It's more likely that some philosopher is crazy than he's sane. That's my contention at this point, right? There are a hell of a lot of fucking crazy or just useful idiots, right? Who has been, hey, you can't be allowed to be a philosopher. You don't know shit about fuck, and you don't know what you're talking about, but you can be a part of this academia, so you can cushion the academia away from all the little peasants, right? You're useful to, gatekeep us away from the taxpayers who are funding our life, right? So there are a lot of those also, but those who are really, laying it out online and where else they do it, they're probably crazy. I mean, I have a principle I'm working from usually, right? If something I don't have direct insight into and has its own will, let's say, well, usually human beings, right? Then I have something I call the worst case principle, right? What is the worst possible action or incentive or something like that individual could have? And then I consider if that might be the case. Can I rule it out? No. So I will consider it so they don't fuck with me, right? Well, things like the government and religion and so on, they want you to think, well, if you don't know about them, you should think the best of people, right? That's what the sophist and the narcissist and the psychopath do. Yeah, you don't know that, so you should think the best of me, right? No, I'm the opposite camp. If I don't know, if I don't have direct access, I'm to think the worst of you, right? So, if I don't know what incentive or narrative people have, what would be the worst possible? In this case, I would say he's a fucking crazy dude with daddy problems, right? Daddy issues and mommy issues. Daddy issues are actually, in a deeper sense, bullshit bingo, right? It's really mommy issues, right? Usually. It might be that possibly his dad died from some illness or whatever, right? Okay, it's not necessarily his mommy, right? But when daddy dies, mommy gets more power, you could say. So he's also having some mommy issues, right? Okay, so that's just, that's a part of philosophy, in my opinion, making judgment that you have to have some functional principle to work from, right? And if you're just eating somebody else's principle, I encourage you to start thinking about how they came up with those principles, because that's the philosophy part. It's not the principle, it's the philosophy part, right? And if there is no philosophy part behind it, okay, then how did that person get to it? Did they just say, I can't argue for this, but I'm working axiomatically, you could say, for this principle? Fair enough. And then you can sort of say, does it sound right for me? I'll take it on, or something like that, right? So you're basing on your life on some kind of reasoning, rather than this crazy talk, man, right? Because at the end of the day, as I keep saying, is that ethics is about your everyday life interactions with other individuals, right? And in order to identify other individuals, I need to cognize. And to cognize, I need my qualia, right? And if there's some third party or an object or something like that, that is a part of that interaction, which could potentially be part of some kind of moral dispute or some kind, let's call it that, then I need to be able to cognize that, and I actually need to agree with a number of other individuals about these objects. How does simulation of death and a big mind out there when I die have any fucking relation to these objects and these individuals? None whatsoever, right? And my contention would be, and I'm hazarding a guess here, he cannot possibly get back to any idea of everyday life from this without just sitting and spouting shit, right? I will be scrutinizing the next part very hard, right?
Very difficult. Ego death is something that you witness it happening to you, and you experience it. You experience your ego just being torn apart, and it's a frightful experience. After that, it's no longer frightful. I cannot speak of what comes after that, but the experience is disconcerting. It's very frightful, even when you know, as we do during a psychedelic trance, that it is temporary and reversible and will be reversed. Even then, it's very frightful. But when you're undergoing that, also knowing that it's not reversible, it's probably more frightful. So yes, I'm afraid of death, but it's a price I pay with a smile in my face, because what I get with it is my life is meaningful. Intrinsically meaningful. It doesn't matter what happens, it's intrinsically meaningful.
What kind of argument is that? Yes, but because I'm afraid of dying, I all of a sudden have meaning, and it's intrinsic. It's just there. Because I've created a story about a big mind that wants to harvest my organs, right? So that's the meaning. The meaning is that I am working for the big dude, right? Okay. Oh. Yes, boss.
I no longer struggle with the meaning of existence. I no longer struggle with the fact that I suffer. I do suffer, but I'm not saying...
No, but whatever meaning you can come up with of your existence, fine. But I'm interacting with you, right? I don't care about your meaning, right? I might have my own meaning. So you want to systematize your meaning so everybody else has the same meaning, to remove anxiety of these other people having different ways of doing things. You don't like that, because that gives that aforementioned anxiety. It's all about creating systems where everybody goes in the same direction, like, marching Nazis or marching, rockets on the Red Square, right? They're all doing the same thing, going in the same direction. I can control them, so I don't have this anxiety of people having free will, right? They can come up with their own philosophy. They can think for themselves. No, you little peasant, you just obey my authority and pay your fucking taxes and shut the fuck up, monkey.
All this suffering is for nothing. Why am I going through this? No, that's gone. I no longer have meta-suffering. I suffer like everybody a lot. But no meta-suffering, no self-imposed suffering associated with questions of meaning and sense. All of that, all of those doubts, it's gone for me. I live in a world that is...
So you have basically just let go of your own will and say, it doesn't care if it's not me doing it. It's the big mind daddy out there who does it. So I'm just here to observe, and then he'll suck all the observation out of me and then I die, right? So there's meaning. I can't get to the meaning. It's not meaning for me. It's somebody else who has meaning, and yet I'm just going along with it. So I don't have to have meaning, because there is meaning intrinsic in the big mind daddy, right? I'm just a spy for the mind daddy, right? That's my meaning.